Let's interview. In this episode, we sit down with Steve Maggiora, virtuoso keyboardist and touring member of Toto. Steve is also a successful recording artist and frequent collaborator with Produce Like a Pro Academy. And he's also a fun guy. Hey! I initially set out to pick Steve's brain on a variety of topics, all of which I figured I'd get interesting answers to, and I did. But we also came away with a lot of interesting nuggets of wisdom that I think only someone with his experience and time spent on the road and collaborating with other musicians can. We dive pretty deep into a few subjects, such as recording workflow techniques as it relates to vocals, some of the nuances of touring with a high-profile band that also has a pretty sophisticated production setup, as well as advice and insight for new and upcoming musicians. I got a lot out of this interview, and I hope you do too. Enough of the preamble. On with the interview. So let me officially introduce you, my guest today, the incomparable Steve Maggiora, who goes by many names, incorrect and otherwise Steve Maggiora. When he's in France, he's Stevie Baguettes.
Yeah,
he'll always be Stevie Keys to me. And I think the Toto members refer to him as Mags. So, he's a man of many names, but also of many sounds. And I'm overjoyed to have you on my YouTube channel. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. It's going to be a good time. For anyone who's eventually watching, Steve and I met in the Produce Like a Pro Academy. There was some content that I was working on for Steve, and we got to kind of chat a lot about how it'd be structured and what would go into it. Wound up becoming what is Sessions with Steve, and great multi-tracks that he provides, breakdowns of those multi-tracks, recordings that he's done solo and with other collaborators, some covers, some originals, a lot of fun stuff. So for sure, go and check that out if you're already a Produce Like a Pro member. And if not, check out producelikeapro.com and sign up and take it from there. And Steve's also been gracious enough at a few points in time to help me with my own compositions and mixes. So it's been a very great relationship. And just personally would like to thank you for all your help thus far.
Of course, bro.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of just get into some topics that, maybe you don't get to talk about as much, maybe you do. We'll see. But all stuff hopefully you find interesting. I know that you're a big Logic guy, and I am now. It seems to work very well for you. I think you have like a good template and workflow and stuff like that. So maybe leading with that, what are some things that you like about it and don't like about it as far as a go-to DAW, maybe things like when you're on the road versus when you have your full studio set up, maybe even some sort of like features that other DAWs don't have that it has, and things of that nature.
Logic to me is perfect for songwriters and for people that have ideas that want to get it out quickly and efficiently without having to launch themselves over too many hurdles.
Sure.
The thing I like about it is that right from the get-go, it's just a one-time purchase.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about having an iLock for it to work. You don't have to worry about these subscriptions, or if you're on the road and you go to a gas station and they scam your card or something like that, and then you have to change all your stuff. And that happened with me with Pro Tools, and it was like trying to get my card changed over to the new one while I was on the road, and then the iLock stuff and everything failing, and if you don't have internet and it decides to refresh that one time that you don't have internet, you're just kind of hosed, and it's then you're waiting for half an hour and the idea is gone.
Forget. Yeah, of course. As is the
crap,
case
now
with
I got to deal with this, that, and the other instead of getting the song idea down,
right?
Or getting this work done that's going to help me pay for my next month of Pro Tools.
For sure. Interesting.
So just out the gate, the simplicity of being able to download it from the App Store, that it's synced with your iCloud account.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get a new computer, you don't have to worry about having a license for that computer. You just log in with your Apple ID and download it, download the sounds. If you've got good internet, it'll
Right.
be done in like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an
And
interesting point.
I've had situations too where like my laptop got stolen, or my motherboard fried, and I had to go pick up a new computer like right then in the middle of a session and load that
Yeah.
on. And it's like, cool, let's take lunch. It'll be up and running by the time we get back from lunch. So that's just killer off the bat.
Sure.
I also really like how all the virtual instruments that are included with it really spark a lot of great ideas. The Logic Drummer is really intuitive and has this cool little, XY graph that you can drag
Yeah.
things from simple and quiet to loud and complex.
Yep. Yep.
And that
More
helps
fills, less fills.
yeah. And that to me helps with, coming up with new ideas and just vibing and getting to jam along to somebody that, is in the computer instead of, you know, having to find time to meet with your friends and
Right. Or
work
your
out the
company
session.
being bing bong 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 bing,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's like, just blasting your eardrum
Yeah.
while you're just trying to stay in time.
And then the Flex Tune
Mm-hmm.
works really great, and it's just built in. Don't have to worry about, having to download other plugins and stuff if you don't want to. It's just got a ton of features, ton of loops that you can toss in and get creative with or find inspiration from.
Yeah.
And it does, you can run it as simply or as complexly as you like, and it'll handle it. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
real powerhouse program.
For sure. Something you turned me on to too was like flex time. That's been pretty invaluable for me with just in the face of like latency.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sure I could probably better calibrate my settings to just get it like near perceptible zero latency. Maybe I'll have you take a look at it sometime. We'll compare it to your settings. But like, something as sort of syrupy is like bass in terms of, sometimes you want it to be a little bit kind of like swing loosey goosey.
Yeah.
It can be really helpful to just be able to like nudge a couple fat wide notes right into the pocket where you need it, without any kind of like, you would never know it's been manipulated, I guess, with like a polyphonic treatment. That was a game changer for me, because there's a lot of times I'm sitting there like racking my brain, like, am I really that bad at keeping time after I lay down some guitars? And then I look and I'm like, oh, it's latency issue, which actually brings up another point. And I don't know if this is unique to Logic, but if you're looking at the DAW, it's kind of like on the upper right side, you can quickly like add and remove some different toggle buttons. And one of them would be like low latency mode. Do you ever
Yeah.
use that?
Every once and again, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice.
What do you think about, because I notice, if I'm thinking about the kind of information you include in like a sessions with Steve post, for example, I'll say this to the viewers, Steve will have listed out sort of session info like tempo and like bit and sample rate, and musicians on the recording and the studio, et cetera, but then also plugins used, and so like,
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan of like the Slate plugins, you have a lot of those, but what are your thoughts on both, maybe as it relates to like Logic or just in general using stock plugins? Like, for instance, my philosophy, kind of being earlier on in my production experience, is like, or career, whatever you want to call it, is that like I would prefer to master all of the stock stuff, master it in terms of like using it the way it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
using it well, before I go. And I think I have like 2 paid plugins maybe. Yeah. But what are your kind of feelings on, usage of stock plugins and the ones they offer in Logic?
I mean, the stock plugins are great. They give you everything really that you need. I've never really been like an outboard guy. I don't know a lot of how these things are, how the physical units are built.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really had the time to dive into that. So for me, if I see somebody else using a plugin and I like the way it sounds,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to check out that plugin. And then I just cycle through presets a lot of the time until I find something that I like.
Sure.
And then I'll go through and tweak it until it sounds good on whatever I'm tracking,
For sure. Yeah.
But for the most part, like I'm not tracking with plugins on You
Yeah.
know, I just get the information in there, and then I end up tossing on plugins later if I need it, you know,
Yeah.
in the mix. But yeah, I think the stock plugins are all, you know, they've got it pretty dialed in. The thing I really love about the Slate stuff and the Wave stuff is the presets.
Okay.
So I can go through and I can see what Ross Hogarth's, you know, custom, you know, doubler thing is, or,
Okay.
you know, go through like somebody's chain for this, that, and the other. And the emulations of analog gear are really good with Slate and Waves, you know. And so it's just nice to like, it's like, well, it sounds good. And that's the nice
Uh,
thing about it being subscription based with the plugins and stuff too, is
mhm.
that like if I didn't need it, I could always just cancel my subscription and
And,
get back up
and then
later.
also if you want to try like a swath of plugins, I would imagine, versus having to buy like them a la carte. I'm
Yeah,
assuming that's part of the subscription
yeah.
model. Yeah.
And I've bought a lot over the years that, you know, that I've seen Warren use and stuff. And like,
Hmm.
you know, the RVox, I toss it on everything because it just makes everything sound better, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know, and I'm sure that, you know, there's a reason for that. That's a simple explanation, but like, I don't have the time to be explained to. I just need to get this work done
Hey,
and
there's
send it off, you know.
yeah,
There's
there's
only so many hours in the day, and while I'd love to dive into the, you know, the mechanics and you know, tinkering of how it works and all that kind of stuff, I just don't have the time most days.
yeah, I mean, like it's great to work on the artistry of it all, right? But certain things that are like just straight up tools, and if you want to just look at it as that's what they're doing, like that's fine because
Yeah.
you're going for an end result at the end of the day, you know.
If
For,
I'm
you
if
know,
I'm cooking, I just need a spatula and some tongs.
yeah, but also in the same way, like to just go back to presets for a second, I was watching some video recently. It could have been Warren, it could have been someone else, but where it was just kind of like a little side comment, but it made a lot of sense how like those presets are there for a reason. Not so much that you're cheating, right? In other words, like if you go throw like 9 times out of 10 when I start with compression on my vocals,
Yeah.
I just load what the default is, and then I just do like a little kind of to taste if even necessary, because it's like the
Yeah.
first thing in the chain or like second thing in the chain, and then there's other things I'm going to be doing. And it's like that's fine because literally, especially if someone has built a paid for plugin that like is trying to showcase um its special sauce, you better bet that the preset is going to be like the defining features of the plugin probably.
Yeah.
So, and then kind of one more thing I'm interested in this wheelhouse, and I know you've covered this in other sort of videos and things, but what are some essentials that you tend to put in your vocal chain, maybe almost always, even if it's kind of straightforward stuff? I'm just curious because your voice is always really cuts through on mixes.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack.
Hmm.
I love that plugin, and just I for my voice, I like using the warm vocals preset on
Okay.
it, and then I tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but but I'm also a big fan of the CLA plugins as well from Waves.
Okay.
And
Yeah. As
the
in Chris
CLA
Lord
vocals
algae.
are, yeah, Chris Lord Algae. Um, it's just a really cool, like the plugins designed really cool because you
Hmm.
have, you know, EQ and compression and effects and stuff all in the plugin itself.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Which is neat. So it's just one thing, kind of like the virtual mix rack. It's just one thing, and then you just kind of cycle through different presets and stuff. But and I very
Oh, okay.
rarely use those in tandem because they do a lot of the same type of signal processing.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's one or the other for me,
Sure.
whether I'm going to use the CLA vocals or the Slate Digital virtual mix rack.
Hmm.
Typically, before either of those plugins, I'll put on the Wave Sibilance
Hmm.
plugin
Okay. Grab your.
just to grab all of my high end crap that's coming out of my mouth.
Hmm.
I've got a lot of air
Sounded funny.
in
Yeah.
in my singing tone and a lot of rasp
Yes.
to it
Yeah.
as well. So it gets a little distracting sometimes if
Sure.
it's really far forward, and it just ends up being a lot brighter. So I'll just take that sibilance thing, and also my S's. I probably should go to a speech therapist, but my S's are like in like 4 different spots. So
Okay.
they'll, depending on where I'm singing in my range and stuff, it's just weird. And it's been a pain in the butt trying to like, I end up like comb filtering to try to
Huh.
notch them out and stuff. But the wave
Oh, you mean
sibilance,
you mean like you get like 4 like
like,
overtones, you're saying?
yeah, and like 4
Oh.
ranges of like, no
Oh.
2 S's are going to be the same.
Oh,
You
okay.
know,
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
when I'm
That's
singing,
interesting
or
though.
like a CS, or like, Z's and stuff, like it just hits in a
Yeah.
different spot. I just don't
Right.
want it to take away from the vocal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
But also, but the problem too with that, I think inherently is that it makes for an inconsistent set of signals to grab, right?
yeah,
In other words, it's going to make your give you more work to do as far as squashing problem frequencies.
yeah. And the wave sibilance, just to toss that in at the beginning of the chain, is
Hmm.
has really helped me out.
Interesting.
And it's really easy plugin to use, and just to dial in and stuff. So
Yeah.
I've been
Interesting.
really loving that one.
Yeah.
The Logic compressors are great, and I'll use that for a little upward compression and stuff, and just to,
Sure.
lock everything in a little bit better. The RVox I always have,
Hmm.
regardless of what I'm using for the initial signal processing.
Yeah.
Um, I always toss that RVox in there. And then while I'm tracking,
Hmm.
I'll use either the Metatune from Slate Digital, or the uh, Vocal Waves Tuner
Hmm.
from Waves, just so that as I'm building out background vocal production, or doing, uh, lead vocal doubles or harmonies or something, it's just kind of reined in a little bit more. Because I don't always go for like perfectly spot on the note every time.
Hmm.
I try to go for performance.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to capture
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. So if it's a little off, and if it's within, a minor third of where I need to be, if the
Hmm.
performance is there, I really don't care if the notes are slightly off, and that's minor third's a giant gap there. That's obviously, but
Sure.
the only reason I say that is because that's about the limit of how far I would tune something, as opposed to just retracking it.
Right.
You
And
know,
then I guess what you're saying then is like,
and
this
like very, very rarely, but
yeah, but this
yeah, if it's
eliminates the need for
slightly
you to
off, it's
have
like,
to
yeah, we'll just
retrack.
tuck this little guy down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, because I'll just like keep retracking, and like
Yeah.
drive myself nuts. That's why I'm asking. So in other words, like you're mitigating, like, you're working smarter essentially by doing that, right?
Yeah. And I'll,
Yeah.
I'll listen back through, I try to get, depending on the song, if there's a lot of background vocals on it, I'll use the background vocal creation process.
Hmm.
Like I'll lay down a scratch vocal for it, and then I'll go through and add everything that I want to do for backgrounds. And that's really my like second warm up vocally,
Okay. Gotcha.
is,
Yeah. Yeah.
having, really spending time on long tones and vocal pads and stuff, which I
Yeah.
do a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm.
Um, and just, having these harmonies that you're just focusing in on, just, little chunks at a time. And then I'll go through and lay down a lead vocal and do, 2 or 3 takes of it, and, then comp that, and have, the other takes is for doubles and stuff, to just pan around and support the choruses and stuff like that.
Sure.
And then if I really, and then I'll tune what I have. And then
Hmm.
if I need to, then I'll go back and retrack something.
Okay. Interesting.
If it's totally out,
Hmm.
then I'm going to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll just retrack it on the spot. But for the most part, it's like, if I'm like, yeah, like I don't know, like I feel like I was really pitchy on it, but the emotion was there.
Hmm.
Like, let me tune it first and see if it's workable,
Yeah.
and then I'll go through and, punch in the stuff that doesn't work. But
Sure. Sure.
9 times out of 10, it ends up working just fine. Tune it up and add a little bit of Valhalla vintage verb on it, and,
Yeah.
Bob's
That's
gone.
cool. That's
Yeah.
a smart approach. Listen up, people. It's those are some good tips.
I don't
Sort
know
of.
if it's the right way to go about doing it,
Well,
but
yeah, but see, here's the thing: is yeah, but you're talking about a workflow. I mean, at the
yeah.
end of the day, like, especially if you're pressed for time, either in a professional session or you're doing it on your own, like, let's say I'm going back to something that like I kind of ran into the ground the day before and I need to start over again, sort of.
Yeah.
Or I'm starting from scratch, but I know I can get into a good momentum. I just have to kind of do it. It's a lot of mornings. I got to get up like super early to do it. And like maximum, I maybe have 2 hours if I get up early enough before
Yeah.
one of the kiddos is up. So thinking from a workflow perspective, well, if I use that approach, I can get probably twice as much done as I normally would,
Yeah.
because then I would just move all of like the dumb stuff out of the way. Like I don't need to do 7 takes of some background vocal that's going to be semi buried anyway,
Yeah.
you know, just to
And
like
it's,
make sure I get all the notes and the phrasing right.
I think every production, it has to have, you have to prioritize,
Yeah, for sure.
and
Yeah,
you have to see what is the most important and what's going to take the most time. And, I mean, I've run out of time that I've allotted for myself for projects, and ended up using like Waves Harmony because, or like my voice wouldn't go there and I couldn't.
sure.
I'd been singing all day and I only had the day to get this done before the deadline.
Yeah,
And what am I going to do? Like my voice is shot. Like
yeah.
I can't call somebody to come in. There's no budget to hire anybody else. So I'm like, cool. Like I'm going to toss the Waves Harmony plugin on an auxiliary and,
Yeah.
feed it from the lead vocal and just,
Right. Right.
let it have a little octave up thing here, and I'll, pitch it and affect it, and you
Interesting.
know, try to get it as close as possible. And if I need to, I'll take that lead vocal and I'll copy it down a track
Hmm.
and just mute it out, but send it pre-fader to the Waves Harmony and chop out all of the sibilants in it. So it's just vowels,
Yeah.
or use the Wave sibilants, before the harmony plugin,
Okay.
and just like take all of the consonants out of it and all the
Yeah.
sibilants out of it, and just let it be this vocal that just tucks nicely underneath. And it's an easy way to get a double trio if you don't have the range or if you don't have the time.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And
It was
there's
really cool, like really cool just to mess with that plugin and see what it could do. And
sure.
I ended up, I think it was for what was it, for Bring It On Back,
Hmm.
which isn't out yet, but I think the should be coming out soon. We went into the Village with Warren and John Button and Xavier and
Hmm.
Sput and my girlfriend Kim, and we tracked tracked 2 tunes, one of mine and one of Xavier's, and it was killer. And then I went to do a little mix on it. I'm like, oh, I'm hearing this thing, and for backgrounds and stuff. And like, I had just gotten the plugin and I was messing around with it. I just ended up like, cool, like this vocal, I'm just going to like have an octave up from it, but instead of pitching it, I'm going to, run it through this thing. And it just sounds a little more natural than the Logic pitch shifter, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and it worked really cool. And I ended up doing that on each of the vocals on the chorus and stuff. So, 3 separate auxiliary tracks,
Okay.
each individually running sibilants, Waves Harmony, and it came out sounding really cool. Like I ended
Hey,
up
man.
replacing it later,
Yeah.
but you know, in a pinch, it delivers pretty well.
Well, look, it's just another tool where like you're trying to make something sound, not always like larger than life, but as best as it can sound. So
Yeah,
you have to consider all these things as tools that will tweak a special element that the computer is not going to be able to create. Like you have to bring that, right? So
yeah.
it's
Well,
it's important to
and
look at them as
let me
tools.
clarify too. Like I I'm not a fan of taking a completely out of tune vocal and tuning it
For sure. Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah, of
it
course.
makes it sound like you can make somebody sing that can't sing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like that, 90 to 100 percentile,
Hmm.
of vocals and stuff. Like you can get the majority of it, down. It's just like maybe reaching for this note is a little much. So you need a little extra help because you're falling flat on like that one note, or,
Yeah.
you're just learning the tune. So you haven't gone through to really figure out where it sits in your range yet. And some of
Right.
your neighbor tones are a little sloppy. Like you can define that better.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but definitely
You're
the
selling me
goal,
on, and I'm not mad at that. I just you know.
definitely the goal is to be able to, execute it flawlessly, and given
Yeah.
enough time
Hmm.
and given enough rest and
Yeah. Right.
and everything, like you would be able to. But
Yeah. Or warm up.
it's,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, before I do most sessions, I'm warming up for, at least an hour, if not 90 minutes,
Yeah. For sure.
you know, and I'm handling emails and doing admin stuff while I'm doing that, just, you
Yeah.
know, secondarily. But it's important to always strive to do the best that you can
For
without the
sure.
computer's help. But
Yeah.
it saves you from, doing a vocal over the course of like 5 days, or doing a vocal over the course of, like 1 4-hour block
Yeah.
for like 8 songs,
Yeah. Right.
um
Yeah. Especially if you're doing more than one song. I'm not even, thinking with that hat on for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you don't want to blow your vocalist out either,
Yeah.
and doing the mindless, just, take after take after take, like that wears on you
Yeah.
psychologically
Of
and
course.
emotionally, it'd be like, oh well, why do I have to do this so many times, you
Yeah.
know
And then like comping is great, and that's another like awesome feature in Logic with
yeah,
takes, love it. But that's the thing too. It's like I get there's probably you should maybe consider if you're having to go out of your way to like do 20 takes and then just like frantically like comp around because there's like that one note or those couple notes that you aren't quite hitting. Maybe that's a candidate for just smoothing it out. On a good day, maybe you would hit it, but if now is the time to capture it and the feeling is there, see,
yeah.
now I'm making an argument for this, um, then it seems to make sense. And no, I get that, yeah.
but
And you know what I think.
but
Sorry, go
for
ahead.
like the last little, 5% of the track,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
I mean, you could do it, and I have done it before, where I've had clients that have been very pitchy,
hmm,
and
yeah,
and we're sitting there and we're spending, a whole day on one song, and then the next day their voice is blown out
right,
because they wanted to get it right, and they kept pushing, and
yeah,
it's just like, no, man, like you're killing yourself for nothing here.
for sure, yeah,
Like, let's just get it, and like, I know what'll be fine and what'll translate, and and where we can help, but
yeah,
let's focus
yep,
on, let's prioritize these things, and then the rest of it, like, we'll get a bunch of takes, and we'll change the production a little bit, make it, trippy and weird sounding, and the lead vocal is just going to be, always doubled the whole way through,
right,
and
yeah,
we'll give it a vibe,
yeah. Switching gears a little bit, Toto, for example, is an interesting topic. May I ask you how that gig came about? I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been friends with Steve Lukather's son Trev,
Hmm.
for a long time, I think a little over a decade now,
Oh wow, okay.
and we've worked together. I've worked on some of his stuff. He's worked on some of my stuff.
Hmm.
He actually played on, there's a Genuine Jerks tune
Hmm.
that I did with Brett Moline, a good buddy of mine,
Okay.
very talented writer and comedian. Um, and we wrote this song called "I Want to Be Your Knee Pillow," and I think that's the first thing that Trev and I did, like, together in the studio. Was he
Okay.
laid down the guitar solo for that one,
Yeah.
and that was a really fun. It was, yeah, I want to be your knee pillow. I want to cry myself to sleep between your thighs,
It's
and
great.
you can probably find a video on YouTube of it.
Yeah, I'll
It's
check it
all
out.
like, white snaked out and everything,
Oh,
and
that's amazing.
it was fun times.
That's great.
Um, so after all this time, and then in 2019, uh, when Steve Picaro was leaving the project,
Hmm.
Trev, I guess Luke asked Trev if he knew anybody that could hang with the gig,
Yeah.
and Trev tossed my name in the hat, and I got an audition for them. They had me do a couple videos of me singing and playing a couple of their tunes, just
Hmm.
verse and chorus.
Okay.
Sent that over to them, and then they invited me up to the house, and just went over to Luke's and sat around the piano with Luke and Joe, and they
Hmm.
ran me through some stuff on the piano and vocally and everything, and then welcomed me to the band.
That's
So
awesome, man. That's great.
it
And they
was
seem
it
like
was
really like
killer.
chill guys.
They're amazing.
They just kind of wanted to make sure you were the right kind of sonic fit and stuff, and then it's all right, let's hang out, and that's great.
Yeah, and I mean they did tell me something very interesting too, like at that in-person audition that they were like, hey, like we knew that you could sing, we've seen what you've done, and everything. But we can hire, like we can train anybody.
Yeah. Huh.
You can train anybody into these roles and stuff. Like we wanted to know if you could hang,
Yeah. Okay.
you
Interesting.
know.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool thing, was that, I was super nervous because I was coming off of like 8 hours of performance the day before, and my voice was totally gone.
Yeah.
And it was, I got home at 4 o'clock in the morning from
Oof.
playing bar gigs the night before, and had to be up, with them at 10 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
with an hour and a half drive up there from Orange County. So,
Yeah. That's
um,
stressful.
they were like, yeah, like we can hear what you got inside of you, and like you're gonna be tired on the road, like, so this is a perfect way to audition,
Yeah. There you go.
because if this is you at your worst and it's still, decent, then
Right.
cool. But yeah, it was cool to hear them say, it's about the hang, and it's true, because you only spend maybe 10% of your day
Hmm.
actually doing music on
Right.
tour.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
rest of the time is you're backstage, you're waiting for sound check, you're waiting for dinner, you're on the bus waiting to get there,
Right.
or you're in the hotel waiting to leave.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all about just being able to be together and keep each other's spirits up, and lift people up when they're feeling down or having a bad day, or get a phone call from back home that doesn't sit well, or all the
Yeah.
all the
Of
life
course.
stuff, man.
Sure.
That's
Sure.
90% of it.
Yeah. And just, not that you're not saying this, but it's like you're spending a lot of time with, with each other. So,
Yeah.
you can't be a poor mix of personalities or a downer or like way too cranked up. Like it has to be the right blend.
Yeah.
Um, so that's cool. That's a, and what an interesting experience.
And the
So
hang's been
yeah,
great, man. Like, I look forward to the bus rides. I look forward to, getting hanging out backstage with these guys. Like,
that's great.
everybody's, really respectful of each other's space, and really
Yeah.
respectful of each other's time, and just
Hmm.
respectful in general. And these dudes are, and then on top of it, like, they're just monster players,
Oh, absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So we get on stage, and it's like, just, it blows your mind, man. Like, you're like, holy shit, I get to actually, like, see this from, and be able to play along, like.
So just for viewers, I was like texting with Steve one day, and like I was asking about something, and I was like, how's the tour going or whatever, and I just get this picture back of like his perspective on the stage, like in this like,
Oh,
huge
yeah,
arena
yeah.
with this like crowd, and I was like,
Yeah, you
what?
texted me at the right time, man.
It's amazing. Yeah, it was really funny. That was like the best response anyone could have ever had
Did
to
I
that
send it to
question.
you, like, from the show?
Yeah, I think like you were about to play or you were in between songs. It's freaking hilarious. But
Yeah.
so let me ask you this though. Do you remember the first time you walked out there? That had to be like super nerve-wracking. What does that energy feel like? I'm just curious because that just seems like you either have to completely detach and you're just like, this is cool, and I'm more mechanical in my motions, or it's affecting you and you're like, ah. I'm curious what that must feel like.
So I'd only done 2 shows with Toto
Mhm.
um before the first show that we did, opening for Journey
Okay.
in
Yeah.
2022. We
Okay.
had we had the live stream show, in 2020, that ended up becoming a live record, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Hell yeah.
and that was cool but weird, because we couldn't we were it was the middle of the pandemic. We couldn't really have anybody there.
Right.
Everybody got a +1, but everybody was spaced out,
Yeah.
and masked up and everything, and like we were all spaced out and masked up when we weren't performing. So that was interesting. It was
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's weird playing the tunes and then like not having the energy given back to you from the audience,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Especially
And
like the
then
kind of songs that, that they write and play. So yeah.
yeah, you
That you
finish
guys
hold
write
the
and play, I should say.
line,
Yeah.
you finish hold the line and it's just, like 14 people clapping.
Yeah. At
Like
like
you're
different
playing a
times.
coffee shop in North
Yeah.
Park,
Right. Right.
San Diego or something. But
Sure.
it was cool, and it was really neat, to be able to have that, as a live stream concert during that time.
Mm-hmm.
We had when it came out, I was, hearing from my phone was just blown up, and hearing from everybody like, hey, we tuned in, like that was
Oh, it's
awesome, that
amazing.
was so cool, like
Yeah.
gave us the concert experience from home, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it was really neat.
That's great.
And then the second show I did with Toto was a private event
Mm-hmm.
um in Sonoma,
Okay.
California.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Oh,
was
nice.
like, yeah, really nice, really cool.
Good one.
Up at a winery and stuff, and so that was fun. And we did a I think it was like a 90-minute show
Okay.
or something there. And then the first arena show that I've ever done with a band,
Mm-hmm.
because I did the Honda Center a couple times years ago with a performing arts group
Mm-hmm.
for this realty company's award show,
Okay.
like yearly
Yeah.
awards and stuff. And we had a whole like 80-piece orchestra
Wow.
up there and stuff too, and 100 performers in the performing group, which was cool.
Yeah.
But the first time stepping out there with Toto at the what was it? I'm gonna butcher the name. So I have it here. It was the PPG
Mm-hmm.
Paints Arena in
Okay.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Lots of awesome alliteration in that name and location.
Yeah. Seriously.
Um, it was wild, man. Like
Yeah.
I was nervous, but you know, as soon as you walk out onto that stage, it's two things happen. You're like, oh shit. And then you look out and you realize that like your brain can't quantify
Right.
how many people are actually there,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And so you immediately feel comfortable.
Sure. Okay. That's an
Weirdly
interesting.
enough.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah, and that's it's funny because the answer to the question is like it's both scenarios. It's just sort of like you naturally have to detach, but there is that like that gut thrill. Plus, also you're standing shoulder to shoulder with like these Herculean musicians that have all these people on the other side of that stage are like just beyond thrilled that they're seeing them, and you now included, and that's got to feel great too. Like you
It
can do no wrong almost.
but I mean you can. Like you can
Yeah, of
fuck up
course.
pretty
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
You definitely have to keep your head about you, and
Oh,
like
sure.
not,
Yeah.
not do anything before the show, in nervous energy to
Yeah.
throw anything off. But no, it's interesting because like it's such a weird disconnect. Like I know that there's all these people out there, and if I look at like one little spot, in the back, like you can see these people, like
Hmm.
either if they're seated or if they're up and dancing or if they're singing along, like, and you can connect with each and every one of them. But
Hmm.
because I'm doing things, you know, like I look up, but it's only for a moment because I have to get back to who I'm working with on stage and making sure that I'm looking to this person for this
Reading their
cue or
cues
that
and
person
yeah.
for the other cue,
Right.
or
Right.
just, paying attention to what's going on stage. And the number two thing that I was going to say is that um, with a band, with Toto specifically, is that the way that we're all on in-ears, right? We don't have any stage
Hmm.
monitors.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything's on in-ears and packs, and the only thing that are live on stage are drums, like
Hmm.
that are everything's live on stage. But what I mean is the only thing that has amplification on stage
Hmm.
is the natural sound of the drums,
Hmm.
the natural sound of the saxophone and the congas,
Yeah.
and Luke's guitar amp.
Right. That's it.
So if the ears go out, we're pretty hosed, and that's not a fun scenario to think about. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but everything sounds exactly like it did in rehearsal.
Yeah.
because we have the same
On the positive side. Yeah.
monitor engineer. We've got the same, techs and stuff, and our crew is just an incredible crew.
Hmm.
To be able to, set that up every night, like, you know,
Absolutely.
in record time and stuff too. Sometimes because we'll, there's sound checks beforehand, and sometimes, logistically things run late, and so they might not have like all day to set everything up.
Yeah.
And they've been knocking it out of the park. So,
Yeah. Well, and you know what too,
the,
like with the in-ear thing, I'm thinking if, and for anyone who's ever played a club or a bar or whatever with like a unreliable PA, or it's reliable but the room's kind of weird,
yeah,
not having too much of that like room, and depending on where the monitor speakers are and all this other stuff affecting your timing is a great asset. If it's all in the cans or like in ear,
yeah.
that's a big win, because it's just sort of, it's where it's supposed to be. So like you're,
And
as long as
especially in the arenas, because you've got, in some of these
yeah,
arenas, like they're not built for music.
right.
They're sports arenas. Like we're
Hmm.
playing hockey rinks and basketball arenas, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's they're not built for that. And some of them have these like 4 to 6 second delays,
Wow.
you know, that if you
That's
take your
terrifying.
ears out, and I've done it a couple times, just, to
Ugh.
really feel, and hear the crowd interaction. And we do have some stage mics that we can pump in ambience and stuff from the room,
Hmm.
but I don't typically have that mixed in my ears too much.
Yeah, you don't
I
have to
just
sort
like
of.
hearing what's going on over here, and if I need to, like, if there's a part where I'm doing something simple, I'll pop my ear out and, hear the crowd singing along and everything. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then most of the time I have to pop it back in because the crowds are just too loud and it hurts my ears.
They're having too much of a good time.
They're having a great time, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird. I
It's
was really
awesome.
nervous, and then it was like halfway through the first song, I was like, wow, like everything we've done to prepare for this is really, built for success and stuff. And it's
Yeah.
just, I felt I did mess up that first show because I caught myself listening to, Luke play one of the solos, and I forgot that I had to play still. Um,
You were just like so enamored by what he was doing. You're like, oh,
yeah, I was just like, whoa,
yeah.
dude, like that's fucking awesome. Like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I gotta keep going,
It's funny. Wait,
but
it along those lines, were there any sort of in addition to that, let's say, were there any sort of Spinal Tap moments, whether it be like the venue, like something on the production end of things, like one of you guys, is there, like a, you know, hello
definitely.
Cleveland, where you're like
And we've
not able to get to the stage. Hello Cleveland.
nothing like worthy of being in a Spinal Tap movie, but
Okay, yeah,
we do reference that movie a lot. It is a
of
lot of,
course.
a lot of these arenas, they're ovular, I guess,
Okay, yeah,
and
ovular. Okay.
they're, so you walk in and sometimes you think you know where you're going, but that was, from like 3 towns ago or something.
Oh yeah, that's a good
So
point.
like
Things start to
there's
look
a
the
couple
same.
times that I've turned the wrong way and ended up having to walk like all the way around the arena. And I'm like, damn, this is
Oh
far back.
no.
And then like all I had to do was turn right, and like the green room was right there, like
That's
20 feet
funny.
away from where we walked in.
So it is like, hello Cleveland. You have experienced that then. There you go.
A little bit, yeah. It's like I think we made a wrong turn somewhere, you know.
They talk to the guy like, in like the boiler room. He's like, all right, he's like, want to go that way? You want to jog down just a little left, and then you'll see a door. That's the state. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
The nice thing, and to combat that, one of the little
Yeah.
tricks that I've seen is that, they'll put arrows leading to the stage from the green room. So when you walk in,
Yeah.
if you don't see signs up for where things are and arrows up top, you can always look at the floor,
Right.
and you'll be able to find your way in reverse. But
Who would have thunk it?
yeah,
Crazy.
but yeah, and then, there was, clumsy little mistakes, like a keyboard switch gets a little stuck, or you're a little too fervent in your uh patch changing and go one too far or something, like
Yeah.
I went to do so we've been doing Rosanna into Africa.
Okay.
And last year on the tour, I had it set up where the the Africa little like the
Yeah.
kalimbas and stuff, and the Rosanna horns were on the same keyboard. And I
Oh.
thought that I changed it over,
Oh
and I
no.
didn't. And so like I'm down, like trying to, like me and X are downstage, downstage right in the front, and
Yeah.
trying to get the crowd going. And I'm like, looking all cool and get back up to my thing. And we're
Yeah.
like, cool, here we go, dude. Like, you ready? And Luke counts us in, and it's just full on this brass sound.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh, that's
We
oof.
just
Yeah.
had a great laugh with that.
Of
It was
course. Yeah, yeah.
fixed immediately, and
Yeah.
only ever happened one other time. And then I
Okay. The
got a
crowd
new
probably thought that
board.
was hilarious though, like it's like
If
that's
anybody caught it,
if
I
anyone even
don't
picked
know.
up, as
Yeah.
usual, people don't notice the mistakes that the artist
I think
notices
our
themselves.
front of house engineer, might have just, caught it. He's brilliant, and he probably just like heard the first note and was just like,
Nope.
nope. Bring this fader down. Talk to you later about that.
So let's say Africa, like that song has a lot of different synth sounds going on, and
Yeah.
and it's a Picaro that wrote all those like layers of that crate like of different synth sounds in that solo.
Yeah. Yeah.
O-
Steve Picaro and David Page.
Okay, so
Yeah.
from a practical point of view, how does that all get switched up in real time? Like how does that work? Because there's definitely like switching between a bunch of sounds in one solo, right?
No,
No, there's not. Oh, okay.
no. There might have been in the past.
Yeah.
I know that they used to, I think they traded lines before. I think I saw that on some YouTube videos
Okay.
of
Yeah.
previous tours.
Hmm.
We made the decision when um, I joined the band and we were getting gear and everything set for this new lineup, that we were going to do everything in the keyboards themselves.
Okay. Yeah.
So in the past, they had done main stage, rigs and stuff, and also had, you know, I think they had a deal with Yamaha at some point for a long time,
Hmm.
and they had the boards, but they also had like main stage with sounds that they were, all routed through the keyboard, and they were playing it
Hmm.
live and everything.
Yeah.
For what X and I are doing, everything's in the boards.
Okay.
So like Africa, I've got 16 layers on the solo patch.
Hmm.
Um, and then I've got 8 layers on the Jupiter 80 that I've got below it.
Okay.
And then I've got 2 layers on my VR 730 and 1 layer of just one sound on my Nord Electro 4.
Okay.
So I've got my keyboard split in two
Hmm.
for the Africa solo. I've
Okay.
got it. It's a 2 patch thing, so I just
Hmm.
have to switch it over once.
Okay.
But the Jupiter 80 is handling the bum 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 bum,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And both Xavier and I are playing both of those parts.
Okay.
So we're both doing bum 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 bum. Hold the sustain pedal, move up to
Hmm.
the upper keyboard, yada da 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 da, and we're
Okay.
both doing that together. So I've
Wow.
got like half the sounds on mine, and then he's also got more, marimba and xylophone and bells and flutes and stuff on his.
Yeah.
And then when it gets to the solo, I change it over to another thing, and I've got it set up like basically cut the keyboard in half.
Right.
So I
Okay.
start on the lower end for the
Hmm.
up to the upper half,
Yeah.
and then back to the lower half to finish it out.
Yeah.
And then the
Wow, man.
flutes being triggered off of the flute I'm playing on the VR 730.
Okay.
So I'll end this thing and then just have to kind of, shoot my finger back over to the other one and
Yeah. Oh my
hope
God.
that I don't miss,
What it's like, because like obviously originally with piano keyboard, you're just starting on, one like instrument.
Yeah.
What was like the progression of that? Like, because obviously before Toto, you started getting a vocabulary, I would assume, of like, multiple keyboards and switching and stuff. Like, what does the development of that look like? And is that like, do you have to like subdivide your brain once again instead, in addition to just like what you have to know playing, opposing rhythms, let's say on one set of keys, like what does that look like over time? Is that, like a big leap going from just one keyboard to multiple ones? And, sometimes you're playing two at once or,
Not really. I mean, you just have to be comfortable with your instrument,
yeah. Okay.
and then you just have to practice your moves. Like, that's
Yeah.
the programming is one part of it,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and when I was programming, my boards and stuff, it was like, okay, well, first off, what's my setup going to be? Like, where do I need things to be and what, like there's some stuff like my left hand is not my dominant hand,
Hmm. Yeah.
so anything that's going to be played with the right hand needs to be, I have to be in an open position or at least stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
Um, and then it's like, what keyboards do I have at my disposal? What keyboards do I need to purchase? What gear
Yeah.
do I have? Like, where should I set it up? How long are my arms?
Yeah. Right.
Where's the height? Should I do a 3 stack? Should I just do 2 stack? I also have to sing. So where's the mic placement
Sure.
and all of these things? And you just kind of piece it together, and when I was running through stuff before we even started rehearsals, uh, for things, like I would mess around with like having both keyboards right there,
Hmm.
and then having a third keyboard, running something else.
Right.
And for the first show, for the live stream concert and for the private event that we did 2020 and 2021, I just had 2 keyboards
Okay.
going.
Yeah.
So I got the third keyboard for the 2022 tour,
Hmm.
and then I added a fourth keyboard for the 2023 tour.
Okay.
And that just meant that I had less, you know, program switches on each board to do it with two,
Yeah.
and the sounds were able to be better and, a little more full and a little more authentic to, what they built and what has become these iconic sounds.
Yeah.
But I think I
Fascinating
got
stuff.
pretty close on the first go around, but
Hmm.
definitely now, it's like you add another keyboard and it's like, okay, well, it would be easier for me to play this over there. So now I got to figure out how to program this over
Yeah.
here so I could do something else with this, or maybe it means that this moves. What am I doing with my feet? And you just have to take it song by song and break it down and figure out what your choreography is. Like
Yeah.
I had one keyboard over here that I ended up switching
Hmm.
because I realized, oh no, like shit, like I got bells coming up and
Hmm.
I'm playing my right hand down here and my left hand's got to be like way up here and I have to sing. Like
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You
This
know?
is not the same thing, but it makes me think it's like I feel stupid even saying it, but it's like when you're playing guitar and you have really, really distinct dynamic parts where like something's got to be distorted but quiet, or there's something that's lending itself to finger picking and you have to figure out what to do with the pick that you're going to use again later. It's not the same thing, but it's in the same wheelhouse of having to logistically figure out before you're in that moment how you're going to both play it the way
Yeah.
you need to, but then also like logistically switch up your arrangement. I mean, even things like certain kind of strumming patterns and like accenting certain parts of the fretboard, you got to change your body position. Just some things don't
Yeah.
work, like, right. So I,
Definitely.
I can for sure appreciate that, but for you on a much more profound level, because there's also the programming aspect of things as well, because you have to
Yeah.
have all that stuff ready and make sure like it's all configured, just like us setting up like stuff for this call. You can't just like dive in and like, oh yeah, it'll work itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Crazy.
it's a lot of prior preparation, and
Sure.
it's been really neat with this band to, like, I do a lot of work at home,
Hmm.
and I do my homework, and I take, I try to take about a month off before each rehearsal period,
Yeah.
um, because inevitably we end up getting, another 11 or 12 songs to learn,
Yeah.
that are sent out. So I'll start programming all that stuff. And whether or not we get to it for this tour or that, rehearsal period, like at least I've done the work and I've got, everything charted out by hand and I can go back through and, if they called up, one of these songs that was on an early list of things to learn,
Hmm.
um, I probably already have like just bass sounds programmed,
Yeah.
like in the keyboard, and I've got notes of like what sounds go where and what's being played, and all handwritten with notes in the margins and stuff of like, cool, like we need this sound, that sound, the other sound. Here's where I'm thinking about putting this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
And if I needed to, I could have it up and running in like a day.
Crazy. For anyone
But
watching, that if you haven't gathered this already, Steve is probably the most organized musician performer on the face of the planet.
well,
Um,
you got, and
no, you have
I
to, yeah.
disagree with that, man. Like there's a lot of people that I know are just as meticulous,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
if not more than me, man. Like
yeah.
it's just what you have to do. Like I never want to show up and not have something done that I was supposed to do.
Sure, yeah.
And I never want to show up and have to be the one that people are waiting for,
For
or
sure,
waiting
yeah.
on.
Look, I mean, I say it, seeming tongue in cheek, but I mean, this is what
Yeah.
it takes to be a professional and to have integrity. It's like you got to,
Yeah.
and well,
Yeah.
and to do the job, I guess, just as well. But
And be
yeah,
able to do all of the your homework and stuff, and then get there and realize that sometimes they might want to do it totally different, and that's
yeah, for
okay.
sure.
And like being able to be like, cool, well, I just spent 30 hours on this, but like, yeah, let's go whatever direction you want. Like that
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Like I just know the song better now,
yeah, yeah. Well,
so
and
I can pivot because
right.
I'm not sitting here trying to figure out how the lick goes on the bridge or something, or
Hmm. If you're going to be playing, complicated arrangements and stuff, and you have worked on something that like isn't going to be done for these next string of shows, I mean, it probably still has value from a hours spent chops point of view,
oh yeah.
and being ready at
and
any time, right? When
and
you
just
do in fact have to play that.
learning the calling cards of these killer musicians and songwriters and stuff. Like it's
Yeah,
really neat to like be able to go through and be like, oh wow, like that's that is Luke's writing. That's
yeah,
Luke's influence on the song. That's Page's influence on the song.
yeah,
This is a Joe melody through and through. Like and being able to see where things got put in, and that just comes from doing your research.
sure, yeah.
And a lot of times, like especially with players,
Hmm.
you've got your signature moves, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
you know somebody on the team's gonna have their he's on fire moment and stuff, and like it's the same animation each time,
Yeah,
you know
right.
but it's cool to like go through and be like, oh cool, like I remember this lick from that other song, so like I
Hmm.
already know it. But he's smart, and he like advances like he does the interval jump like an eighth note before he did it in the other one.
Right, right,
And
right.
it's like, oh cool, like I have these shapes already,
Yeah.
and unless you really sit down and analyze things, like you're
Hmm.
not gonna it's just gonna seem like so much more work.
Sure, yeah.
I'm like, oh, I remember how this thing sounds, that's from this song, and that's this same figure, and like, oh, I wonder if, oh yeah, yeah, that is that thing, cool,
Right.
that's a David Page shape, like, and it's
Well,
and
and then
it's
also seeing like someone, a band member, uh, making augmentations, maybe not like every night, but week to week or something, then that also gives you a sense of what other options you may have to kind of accompany that,
yeah,
right? If
and
you're
just
observing that, which is cool.
and where it's appropriate to do so,
Sure. Yeah.
like with this band specifically, like it's for me, it's a lot of just playing the parts,
Yeah.
you know
Right.
and I love it because they're so smart. Like the parts are
Yeah.
perfect, like the arrangements are brilliant.
Yeah. They're like a real
um
musician's band.
it's it's just good shit.
Yeah.
It's just really good shit, man. And it's been fun doing that. And there's a couple moments that we can stretch out, and I can follow and just kind of jam along and stuff. But for the most part, it's like, what's set is what's set. Like it's, to me, it's always been that with bands, even when even when it's like, here's a jam section, it's like, yeah, but like that doesn't give everybody the freedom to just fucking do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like who's holding the talking torch, at
Yeah.
this point?
Right.
Who's holding the talking stick or whatever? Like there has to be a focus.
Yeah.
And whoever's not the one who's supposed to be holding the focus, everybody else needs to do something that's going to support that.
Right.
And like the Allman Brothers were great with that kind of stuff when they're jamming
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. They pick
Yep.
apart and they stick to it.
Yeah.
And I really, admire that about this band, is that like everybody's really smart players. And when it comes to the stuff that they wrote, like there is a focus and everything, but it passes the torch so much
Yeah.
musically,
Yeah.
on top of vocally and everything too, because you've got essentially three singers in the band on most of the tunes,
Yeah.
big ones.
Which also implies that like they have a good understanding of like what the audience is gonna appreciate, how much of it, how little, keeping it interesting for the audience. Like that's a cool thing if you're at the show and you know them well and they're still sort of captivating your attention, which is great. What an interesting sort of experience, that whole thing. Good for you, man.
It's
That's
fun,
great.
man. I'm loving it. Can't wait to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I won't keep you for too much longer because I know we're kind of getting to time, but so I'm just gonna pick a few other kind of questions from other kind of sections. But something that I was gonna ask you before when we were talking about recording, but it's more of like a songwriting thing, is because I'm very curious with you, this how often do you wind up writing stuff during the recording process?
I mean,
Even if it's
a
like
lot,
okay. Yeah.
a lot, and it's just because I do like to write from the desk with Logic open if I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like having, if I'm writing by myself, I like to be able to like find a groove and do it. But it's also like I've written just at the piano with pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's great too. But if I'm sitting down at my computer to write something, like I'm gonna get a groove going. I'm gonna be recording everything.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be recording, each line like as I write it, and recording, vocals of just gibberish,
Mm-hmm.
try melodies out and see what I like against the backdrop of what I've built to support it,
Yeah.
I think writing with people that way, writing with other people that way is can be difficult sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because it just ends up being an unnecessary cook,
Yeah.
in the creative kitchen, if you will.
Right.
And sometimes it's better just to like, go chill in the living room for a little bit and then, go outside to the porch for a little bit for some
Yeah.
different inspiration and just talk and see
Sure.
what comes out. But then you have somebody when you're co-writing with somebody, you have somebody to pitch ideas and bounce ideas off of,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa, which ends up eliminating a lot of that second guessing because if you approach it with no idea is a bad idea and you're just improving each other's thoughts and stuff,
Yeah.
then you can write something pretty quick. When you're doing it by yourself, like that gets really tough to bounce ideas off of yourself.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So I like having the crutch of, or not, I won't call it a crutch. I like having um, the tools available to be able to immediately hear it back so that I can discern on whether it's good or not,
Yeah.
or if I'm on to something with it.
Right. And also too, like in the case of, well, it's like say in your case being, more keyboard oriented. And I'm starting to go that route just like from a writing point of view. I'm starting to feel like, I mean, not like I'm not going to play guitar anymore, but I'm utilizing my guitar sort of as accompaniment and
Yeah.
backbone and stuff after the fact instead of like trying to write on it, because it just like from a theoretical point of view, it's not giving me what I need it to anymore. I've gotten too stuck.
Yeah.
So the keyboard, it's just like, it's great to just sit down and just jump into it and get, I think we talked about this, get sort of like overtones and inversions and things that you can't get on a guitar.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But
messing
yeah,
around with, with the Logic stock instruments and stuff that they
yeah.
have, like tossing on a synth and being like, ooh, what can I do with this?
Yeah. And you can
And
get
you
like
just start
layers and
messing
things.
around, like adding in the drummer, or Logic's got this new thing where like they've got templates for, different songs, or they've got little loop based things that you can,
Yeah.
program up, and so you don't really need any musical talent whatsoever, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
Um, because it gives you a sense of arrangement, and like if you get a good idea out of it and then bring it
Yeah.
to a producer, like here's what I built using loops, and
Yeah.
dragging and dropping stuff
Right.
and coming up with the melody, and like, can we make this a cohesive thing?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer for many good producers is yes.
Yeah. Right.
you know
Right. Yeah.
like it doesn't matter what the song is, like if it's somebody's personal experience that they're getting out, like it's worthy of at least giving it a shot.
Sure. Yeah.
You might have to trim a lot out of it to make it work, or embellish a lot of what's there, but it's no idea is a bad idea any way you slice it.
Yeah. And like also too, and this is kind of more, I don't want to say an argument for MIDI, but specifically in the MIDI realm, you can get a little bit more of like high quality production value during the noodling process,
Yeah.
so that like you could set a good baseline up really quickly.
Yeah.
And then if you want to start taking away, it's because it's almost like it gives you, I don't want to say false confidence, but it gives you some sense of confidence to sort of like maybe perform it in a way that you wouldn't if and when you're kind of battling with like the real implications of like miking things and the room not sounding right and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm finding that it's easier to quickly ramp up the production with software instruments, and like, whether that's good or bad, who cares? But
It's
you know,
that's completely subjective.
sure, of course it is. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I think any tools that you have to get things done and to feel good about your creativity are worthwhile.
yeah. No, I agree, man.
Um, and especially if you don't have to pay for them, even better.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it's really, it's like we're so spoiled
Because
now.
toys are expensive, man.
Yeah, they are. They are. But it's like, if you're smart about it, I mean, just the production value you can get out of a good mic, like an SM7B and a Scarlett, two. You can
Yeah,
do a lot with two inputs and a good mic and a good preamp and
absolutely,
a good
man.
DAW. It's
In any
crazy.
room, anywhere in the world.
And honestly, for the most part, it's just it's nothing but a good thing, because it means like anyone that can come up with a good idea that can execute it, has within reason and within a certain budget, has the ability to do so and put more good music out there.
Yeah.
So, which one more kind of thing, I think, we're in a very different world than we were even like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were kind of talking about this before we started rolling tape, but what do you think for like new musicians starting out? What are some things that you maybe wish you knew before, setting course in this industry, but then also some advice you had for people starting out now in terms of things they should focus on or not? Maybe a
Uh,
bit of a vague question, but
I'll say this: you don't need permission to start.
okay, that's good.
Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for somebody to notice you.
Okay, yeah,
Just do it. If it's what you want to do it. Find a way to do it.
yeah,
And then do it, get it done, and then start on the next project. And
okay,
do it and get it done and start on the next project. That's the only way that you're going to get better
yeah. Put in that
at what
work.
you do. And that's the only way that other people are really going to, take notice,
Sure.
is that the more people that you involve in your creativity,
Mm-hmm.
the more people are going to really know how creative you are.
Right.
And then they tell their friends, hey, like, check out this tune I got to play on. Oh, who's this? Oh, I like this. Oh, you know,
Yeah.
and it starts spreading that way, and you get to meet more people, and then you start getting calls from other people of like, hey, I heard you on this thing. Like,
Right.
do you have time to do this for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the whole dream. And like, it doesn't happen right away,
Right.
like nothing's going to happen overnight, but I feel like a lot of people sit there and try to keep polishing the same thing until it's perfect, and like perfect doesn't exist, man.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's,
Does it say
you
what
know,
you want it to say, and does it sound good enough
well,
to,
and if you write a song at 15 years old and you're still working on it when you're 21,
yeah,
like you're a different person, like
right. Yeah, for
you
sure.
have no connection to that song other than the fact that a previous version of yourself was the one that penned it,
Yeah.
you know, but your voice doesn't sound the same. Your performance, on your instruments hopefully has gotten better, unless you've just been working on that one thing, but it's really easy to spiral, and I think that people don't often realize that they don't need permission to do what they want creatively.
Well said.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, the gatekeepers that were there, again, 10, 20 years
Yeah.
ago are not the same gatekeepers, if there are even any gatekeepers. There is to some degree, as far as like, if we're talking about distribution or whatever, there's certain steps you have to go through and so on
Yeah,
and so
but
forth. But, SoundCloud's
your
probably changed a lot of
creation
that.
at its start should be to serve yourself,
Yeah.
like it's there so that you can express yourself and get these emotions out, or say something in a way that words by themselves can't do justice.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Truth. I love it.
welcome to my TED talk.
Yeah, no, this is good. Well, like there's a lot of wisdom to be had here. So that was,
Yeah.
one of many reasons I wanted to have a conversation, and thanks for doing just that. Um,
Yeah, of course, man.
so you have a lot of great songs and albums on Spotify. One of them being Hearts and Scars,
Yeah.
and then your latest release, Keep Truckin', and then your upcoming release is what's it again?
Yeah, I got a song called Bad Dream coming out July 14th. And
Okay.
then also this summer, I'm really, really pumped. I just found out that it's coming out this summer as well. It is a project I did with an artist called John Philbrick
Mm-hmm.
that is just an incredible guitar player. And
Okay.
we got together, put it together in 2020 and 2021. And we've got an 11 song album that just rocks your face off, coming out
Awesome.
this summer, called If You Say So.
Okay.
And I'm really, really pumped for it to be out in the world. It's some of the best writing I think I've ever done. And
Oh, awesome, man.
it was really fun to put together. And it's got just a insane list of people on there. Um, Greg Bissnet is on drums for a couple tracks.
Okay.
Randy Cook's on drums for a couple tracks. We got Tim Landers on bass. We got who else? Man, uh, Adrian Gross, and some just incredible Diedrich Bonner, Kenna Ramsey on background vocals. Travis Carlton laid down some bass for some of it. Brandon Sturgill, Dave Egger did all of the string arrangements for it.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dave did strings for everybody from Coldplay to Alicia Keys, and
All
all that
right.
stuff. And
Very
it was
interesting.
just really, really fun to put together, and some really just rocking tunes that
Sounds like it was a fun
are gonna
project.
knock your socks off,
I
dude.
can't wait.
You'll be
Well,
sick. It's
well,
gonna be good. I don't have a
yeah.
release date yet, but
Well, I
it'll be
was gonna say
sometime this
after.
summer, either July or August.
Okay, yeah. So like as of the time of recording, it's June 16th. So,
Yeah.
when that's out, after this is published, I'll update the description with all this information, the
Cool.
musicians, the um link to the album
Yeah.
on the platforms, all that good stuff.
And
Which
then I've
speaking,
also
yeah.
got new music coming out every Friday on Patreon,
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's
which
not
is
forget
very
about that.
fun.
Yes, on your
So,
website, which is
and my website, stevemajora.com. There's a bunch of cool lifestyle merch and music downloads, and
awesome.
you can get some fun mugs that say fun things. And
Yeah, come on. We all drink, some kind of
yeah,
hot beverage in the morning, folks.
yeah, I got this one that's holding my pens that says "I love my Pekingese."
Awesome. Um, oh, you know what, too? Also, shout out to your girlfriend, a very talented musician, songwriter, Kim Melville. Please
Yeah,
also check her out. We'll throw her in the description as well. Um, and she's featured on a number of Steve's singles. So,
yeah,
yeah,
including "Keep Trucking," which I
that's right.
dropped the ball and didn't put her. I should have put her on as featured on there, but I forgot. But Kim's playing all the guitars on Keep Trucking as well. And
Yeah, she's a badass guitarist for sure.
she's amazing.
What are some other something I'll point out too, just I don't know if it depends on sort of in what ways they could be used, but you also have a lot of piano improv on
Yeah.
the streaming platforms. I'm thinking in terms of Spotify when I go through the discography.
Yeah, there's 45 in total.
Wow.
There were
Good God. It's amazing.
Yeah. It was fun. They were cheaper than therapy at the time.
Sure, absolutely.
So it was good. Just focusing on, one or two motifs per song, and just improvising over them, and just kind of letting life just kind of channel through. And it was very meditative, very healing experience for me. And
that's awesome.
I've heard, from fans and family of mine that, they really dig it. My sister plays it for her kindergartners all the time to usher them into nap time.
That's amazing.
So I'm like, yeah, keep it going. Like, keep streaming it. Tell all your other kindergarten teachers to use it,
Also too, I mean, would it be fodder for sync licensing?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, there you go. Okay. Yeah.
If somebody wants to use some chill piano music for, whatever they got, that'd be cool.
I would imagine, yeah, there's a continued growing need for that with all of the streaming content that's out there.
I want to get it in elevators. I want to get it in spas.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, for sure. That's that's the benchmark right there.
Yeah.
What are
Zen gardens?
Right. What, in addition to stuff like that and whatever anyone would find on the site, what are some maybe not as obvious services that people could hire you for?
Yeah. I mean, I do keyboard production work. As you can see, I've got some keyboards behind me.
Oh, yeah.
I've also got a really beautiful piano out in the living room that I mic up, and it sounds great. I also do background vocal production, and lead vocal production from time to time. If you need a vocalist on one of your projects, I'm available for hire. I also do top lining. If you need a melody and lyrics for your song, I do that as well. And also recently I've been getting just into songwriting consultation and stuff. So if you've got a tune that you want to, just kind of throw the ball back and forth, and, have me tell you what I think and help you out to get somewhere with it. And, whether that's co-writing or just pointing you in the right direction, like that's something that I offer for, a per hour rate, which is very fun and fulfilling. And I just love co-writing and love being able to be part of people's creative process too.
Yeah, it really is the best. And I can personally attest to that latter skill. Steve's helped me out with a couple of songs and productions, namely First Night, which, if you're already on the channel, you could just go to one of the other videos and listen to it. But I'll put a link to the demo version of it, and you could see where it was at, it was okay. And then, through some suggestions and navigation guidance from Steve, the end result was achieved. So a big endorsement for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was great, man. This was a lot of fun. Oh, listen, also, because I'll mention this on camera just so that, we don't have to remember. On the subject of songwriting stuff, there's also a podcast that I'm starting up with my buddy that I mentioned to you earlier on, which is called Waiting on a Song, based off the Dan Auerbach album.
Nice.
Concept. And we're going to cover a lot of songwriting related topics. So we'd love to have you on that as well. And, maybe we can do something fun live, and have you on a few times. So something else to keep in mind.
Yeah, let me know, man. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, man, keep trucking, and good luck with the new release. And we look forward to seeing you back on the road with Toto as well. So.
Yes.
All right, buddy. Brother. All right. Well, it's been a great interview with Steve Maggiora, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Woo! You liked that video, didn't you? Yeah, I know you did. Anyway, like and subscribe, and I'll create a lot more content like that. Look forward to seeing you around. Take it easy.